Hello, everyone. Can you see my camera? Nice. Wow. Why there are like so many people surrounding me? All right, let's get started with today's sessions. Welcome everyone to our first sessions for the launch. So we hope that throughout this series of workshops, it can kickstart your web development journey, especially on like right from scratch, right? From writing the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And one day you can even be a web developer. Who knows, right? So before we actually go into the session itself, okay. Before I actually go into the session itself, let me introduce the ideas of the web development. So essentially, right, we have like two parts, two components for web development. We call it front end and back end. So what does it mean? Like, what differentiate them? So imagine like today you go to government departments and you request to change maybe to renew your passport. So you go to the department and then you and reach to the receptions and you ask them like, oh, can I have the form for me to renew my passport? So the reception is going to give you to give you the form, right? So when you receive the form itself, the paper itself is what we call front end. It is just a paper. It's just for display. It's nothing. It's for the end users to be able to interact with. And then once you fill out the form, right, you're going to submit back to the person. The reception in this case, right, is what we call a back end. So a back end here is essentially like he will take in your forms and then he will process it. It will like verify, oh, is this correct? Is that correct? And then he will pass it to maybe like the document guys, the document rooms, and then he will pass it to that guys. So whatever that whatever the process undergo, right, whatever the process that goes beside that receptions, you never know. So as end users, what you can see is only the front end. Just imagine to summarize it, what you can see, even like in this screen itself, what you're seeing right now is what we call a front end. A back end itself is what you cannot see. So we have even make out a YouTube links for you to know for just check out the Sunway Tech Club YouTube channels. We made some great videos there, and hopefully through these videos you can also gain some understanding. But without further ado, let's get on to the proceed with it. So in this particular web launch, right, we only cover front end, which is what you can see. It's just for display, it's nothing else. So when we talk about front end, right, think of it like you're building a house, right? So a house, you have your backbone, all right, your structures. So the structure here is what we call HTML, hypertext markup language. It's just the bricks to the home. It has nothing else. It's just a bricks. You set out the structures, and then after you build out the structures, the bone, and then stack out all the bricks, what are you gonna do next? You're gonna paint it, right? Or else your house is gonna look super ugly. And that comes our second session, which is the CSS, cascading style sheet for painting. Then the third step is that you're going to wire out your lightings, your switches, your doors, and adding like behavior. Like when you hit on the switches, when you turn on your fan, the fan is going to switch to turn, right? So that is what we call a behavioral layers in the front end. So essentially, you think of it like in three components: bricks for the structures, CSS for the painting, JavaScript for the behavior. All right. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the speakers of today for these HTML workshops. So Linus, he's a Sunway Tech Club. It stands for Health Education Tech Clubs. He has a degree in computers, network and security. He's currently studying a third year degree. So, and we have Marcus here, General Committee of Sunway Tech Clubs, and also studying a diploma in information technologies. Currently also second year. But why the profile picture looks a bit weird? Like Linus is looking on the left, then Marcus is looking on the right. They're fighting each other. It's a bad choice of profile pictures. Oh my God. All right. Let's get Marcus into the sessions. It's okay. You don't have to wear the headphones.
Audition time. So, hi guys, I'm the head of education of SDC, also known as the whole SDC. I'm here to serve you. Okay, so let's start with intro to HTML, I guess. So web development, like what Poco said, HTML is one of the key technology in terms of web development. So HTML stands for called hypertext. Do remember that because we will have a quiz later. And then, so we have, so what is HTML actually used for? So like what I say is used to as a brick of the house, because of our website structure. Back then, we all have those fancy. OneNote is just a simple send a document, a list of information through the network. So Tim Berners-Lee created HTML, and after that is to use to write, be sent to another individual. So as you can see, HTML is just a simple way for you to structure your website and also use to document whatever that you need and send it through the network. And I think a lot of people have a misconception in terms of HTML. Although it is called hypertext markup language and it is in a text sense, it is not a programming language. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, you can't really use HTML to fly a rocket.
Hack NASA, man.
Hack NASA. I mean, you can, if you can do that, salute to you. So yeah, it is not a programming language. It's just a simple way of writing text that be able to pass into a browser and display a website. Okay, so let's go for pop quiz. So just for you to get used to what is HTML and whatnot in this web development journey, let's have a bit of a ice-breaking session. So the pop quiz is very simple. What is the full title of HTML? Okay, so the first answer, how to make lemonade. Kind of weird. Second one, how to make license. Okay, the third one, hypertext markup language. Or lastly, how technology opens so much that the possibility of a fabricated reality is negotiable to one another, introduce an idea that in a simulation created by a higher being governing this ideal life.
Matrix.
Yeah, it is a bit heavy on the last one. So anyone have any answers? If you get the right answer, we'll have a gift for you. So A, B, C, or D?
Must be D, right?
Yeah, it must be D. I feel like it's a bit stronger on the D also.
Yeah, Matrix, man. Most people like say D.
How can it be just A, B, and C, those simple stuff? Oh,
yeah, because it's long, as what our lecture told us, right?
Yeah, that's
when you
right.
can't choose, just choose the longest one.
The longest one should be the right one. So many words in there and all that. So yeah, I guess a lot of things. Oh, someone got the right answer. Joking. So it's actually C. Thank you everyone for participating. You have a virtual hug from me. Okay. Okay. So all right, let's get serious, right? So let's first start with basic HTML. So before we actually start a practical session for this itself, I would like to just have a basic opening. I'm just basically an opening for this session, to be honest. So HTML is, of course, widely supported everywhere else, like, Chrome, Firefox, Safari. If you are a bit more paranoid, Brave browser too. Okay, so if anyone know about Brave browser, thank you so much for coming the privacy concern role. And yeah, if you have a browser that doesn't support HTML, I think you should not be using it.
That's not a browser, right?
Yeah, that's not a browser anymore. HTML is so fundamental. Yeah, I don't think there is no. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Okay, so text editor. So text editor is basically a place for you to write your HTML, right? So it is unlike those Microsoft Word or Notepad. I mean, technically you can use Notepad to write your HTML code also, or even Microsoft Word. That is kind of annoying. But yeah, so the text editor we recommend is either Atom, Visual Code, the center one, or Sunway text. So these three is the most prominent, and of course, they will ease your web development path. Okay, so yeah, we actually recommended Visual Studio Code because of its wide support of like different extension and a lot of fancy technology that you'll be able to use to write your HTML.
I've never seen a person use Microsoft Word to write HTML.
You actually can. So fun fact, if you actually do write a HTML code in Microsoft Word, you can actually export it into a website and then it becomes HTML. But I will say, why do
That's evil.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Okay, so the general website layout, of course, we have a few feedback in terms of like what do you expect for the workshop. So if you were to cultivating website, right, this is the four most general website layout that you can get. Obviously, logo is always on top, photo always at the end, and how you actually structure your, your boxes, your header, your contents and all that. There is a lot of debate on that. Of course, we have a source for you to go look out for, or you can just search online, but this is the most basic four layout that you ever get, okay? So this is something that you would like to take note of if you want to create a captivating website. Okay, so next. So file structure. I know a lot of people did their assignments, and then after that finish the assignment, like the files is there, like web image files is in 2 folder deep, and your words and whatnot is somewhere else in another folder. So we do recommend if you were to create a website, this is generally how you will structure your files. Okay, index.html put to the most obvious place, the outside of the whole folder itself, so that if you pass this folder to another person, they will just click into the index.html and they can get to the website that you created. Okay, so obviously you have a CSS folder that is what we'll say the beautifying part, JavaScript for the functionality part, and the image that is related to your website. Of course, you need to put in the image file. So this is just a general way of structuring your a file structure. Obviously, you can kind of tweak it a bit, but please don't make all your pages and this and that. It'll be kind of hard for you to keep track also. Okay, so this is the basic file structure. Okay, so let's go to HTML itself. So HTML is nothing much but just a bunch of text wrapping into a bunch of text. Okay, so these are the general tags that is in HTML, right? So this is how you generally write your stuff. You have your opening tag, you have your closing tag, and you have your content in the middle. Okay, and then obviously this is the structure that is saying that, okay, what is this do? This is the paragraph text. Of course, this is the heading tag and all that. Okay, this is the hyperlink. This is used for hyperlink. Obviously, we have a lot of different text that exists in the world. So obviously, you can go to w3school.com and you have a list of texts you can use that will help your website. But these are the most general and widely used texts that you can write your HTML. Okay, so next element. So if you ever went to search for like web development itself, right? Sometimes they will use text and element interchangeably, right? But there is actually a kind of difference. Okay, an element is something that is wrapped between the text. Actually, not something. Sorry. Actually, this whole thing itself is an element. As you can see, you have a start tag. Okay, so this class and value and stuff, you actually learn more of this in CSS. Right now, just kind of not asking you to ignore it, obviously. So do keep in mind about this. But okay, so you have your starting tag, you have your end tag, and you have your content in the middle. Whole thing is actually called elements. This basic difference. Text is just text. Okay, so when you do converse, you say, okay, what tag do you use? Yeah, I use the p tag. So how is your element? Yeah, my element is this whole thing itself. What do you put inside the tag? Is called an element. Okay, so next. So boilerplate. Yeah, as you can see, is this more, is this short. This is what you need to start the HTML page itself. Okay, you have a doc tag that specifies that this is the HTML document, and then you have your HTML tag. Let's say that obviously this is a HTML file. Okay, and after you have a heading which includes your title. That if you put something in between this title tag, right, this is what will be displayed in your tab. So when your tab have that, the words or like go Facebook.com and whatnot, yeah, it is between this title. And obviously you have your body, which is literally what you put other stuff in. So the body, and then the end tag HTML. So you always have your opening, see, opening, closing. Okay, so to be honest, nowadays browser, right, is actually very smart. If you ever try, I mean, we do not condemn this idea, but if you just have an index.html file, you open it up in Visual Studio Code or Sunway Text or whichever text editor that you want, and you literally just type, this is a test or something, without specifying this whole thing, and you open it up in Firefox or Google Chrome, right? Yeah, it is able to display. It will recognize this as a HTML file, but it is a best practice to obviously put this in so that when the browser passes the stuff that you want to put inside, it is passed properly. Like where is it? Where is it in? What is it? Is it a paragraph? It is a link or what? Okay, so these are the importance. So do keep in mind about this boilerplate and please use it. Okay, so next we have our indentation. So when you write your report also, you obviously do keep in check of the indentation, right? You don't everything just put at one side or like some weird corner in the file or whatever. So do keep in mind that if you do write your HTML code, okay, this is generally the indentation. Like the main one will always be kind of, up one level of the indentation, and then the one that is underneath it or in between this, like example, like this head, the tag exists in this head. Yeah, always indented. Okay, indented. Like, see, this is also indented. After that, you have another indentation that is correlated to the UL. So LI is correlated to UL, so you indent another level. So I guess when we go into the practical, it will make more sense. But right now, I'm just basically trying to tell you guys how do you actually write your HTML code. And obviously, everyone have their own ways or have a different style. But this is generally the best practice. So yeah, this is the indentation. And then, yeah, actually, that's my part. I'm just kind of like opening, and I do hope you enjoy my session. And I guess let's go into the practical.
Yeah. I think Marcus is going to deliver you the hands-on part. Yeah. So it's better to action than 1,000 words. So, yeah, Marcus, welcome.
All right. So before that,
Can you send the book link?
Okay. It's in the Telegram.
Is it?
Right.
WebLaunch. Copy this one. It's inside the chat. Pasted it.
Yep.
All right. So as you can see here, we just said in the chat that this is a Git book link. And basically, this is like a documentation for our entire workshop. So we are going to guide you through like the following stuff. Linus has already talked about the introduction part. And now we are going to work on our first practical, which is a personal blog. So basically, we want to create a blog that has some very basic content. And the content will be related to MCO because we all can relate to it. So we're going to go through all these elements, create like a basic document, and do all this other stuff. So let's start with setting up. Okay, so for the file structure, as just now Linus has mentioned, so you can create a new folder. Maybe you can call it personal blog. And it's good to have descriptive names because eventually you have a lot of websites and you will get confused pretty easily. And inside this folder, we are going to create another folder, which is images, to store all your images and whatever visual assets that we have. And now we are going to open our text editor. So we are using Visual Studio Code for this tutorial. If you do use other one like Sublime Text or Atom, you can also use them. But currently VS Code is like the trendy one, and it's really customizable. You can do a lot of pretty cool stuff. So now I'm going to open the folder of the website, which is personal blog. So we have already created our folder and subfolder, and we can start by creating our HTML file. So to do that, we just right-click the Explorer section over here, New File, and we call it index for convention. Make sure the extension ends with .html. And we can start to actually do the coding part. So the first thing we're going to do is to write text content. So before we start any HTML document, right, we need the boilerplate. The boilerplate is like the necessary text that your browser needs in order to properly read your HTML document. So if your boilerplate is missing, basically it's not a HTML document. And just now Linus has already mentioned. So what you can do is you can do doc type. As you can see here, this is the power of text editors. You can just autocomplete. Don't even need to type everything. Extremely convenient. And then HTML. After that, you have the head. And the head is used to store metadata about your website. Then we have our body, which is to store the actual content of our website. So whatever that you see in the website shows up in the body, and whatever is in the head is invisible. It's like the hidden data. So now we are going to start by adding a title. So before that, what is a title? So we're going to bring you through the basics throughout this practical. And oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is comments. So comments is basically something like little notes that you can add into your text editor, and your browser won't care about it at all. So for example, I can just type a comment. So a comment is an angle bracket, exclamation mark, dash, dash, closed by another dash, dash, angle bracket. So it's like an arrow. So if I put a comment like, let's say, WebLaunch 2020 HTML, like save, and now I open the file. You can see that our website is still empty because comments will never show on the website. It's just something that reminds you what you need to do, provides you information. And another cool trick you can do with comments is you can use it to temporarily remove your code. So as you can see here, this is the navigation bar like code. And I use a comment to indicate that these are the code for navigation bar. So let's say maybe stuff happens and I didn't get to touch my project for about a few years. After a few years, I come back, I can still remember, oh, this is navigation bar. And I can also comment out codes by adding the comment text in front and behind of the actual code. And it will also temporarily disable them. So sometimes you might not want to necessarily delete the code straight away. You want to save it. You want to first, take out, then put it back, so you can use these comments. So comments are really useful. Make sure to comment whatever like program or documents that you're working on, so that you won't get lost. And eventually, if you work with your teammates for assignment, you can also add comments so that they know what you're doing. And so let's start with title. Title is located in the head element, and it's very straightforward. It displays the website title in the browser. So if you see here, it's in the head element. I create a title my website, and it appears in the tab. So all this here, right, is all the titles of this website. So let's start with our title, which is personal blog. So I'm just going to undo this. In the head tag, I will create a title. So you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it personal blog. Very straightforward. Oops. And now, save the file. Make sure to always save your file and refresh the page to be able to see the changes. And you can see here that the personal blog shows up at the title. So this is how we create our website title. As for this icon over here, that is something a little bit more complicated that you guys can explore. We won't be teaching you how to replace the icons. So now let's move on to the next one, which is to add some actual text content from. So, I'm pretty sure every one of us here wanted to have like a website where we can put some text content, whether it's like some of our opinions we would like to share with the internet, or like your resume. So, of course, we have to learn how to add text content first. And the most basic one will be headings. There are 6 types of headings. So H1 is like the biggest, the most OP one. And then like H6 is the smallest and less important one. So let's start with headings. As you can see here, there are a few heading tags that we can add. And they are just basically used for the general title of your content. So one thing to keep in mind when you use headings is you want to apply this concept called hierarchy of importance. So basically, hierarchy of importance is like the more important your heading is, the bigger the heading you should use. So for our body, we're going to add a title for our blog, which is personal blog. H1 is the biggest heading. And then under the personal blog, we have an article title, which is the 3 stages of my life during the MCO period. So let's just add that. During the MCO period. And after that, 3 subheadings, and they are using H3. So I'm just going to copy paste from here. You can also click here to copy paste the whole code snippet. And make sure to indent them properly, otherwise it's really messy. So you can see that the first stage, the second stage, the third stage, they all use H3. because they fall under this article title of H2. That's why this is where you can see the hierarchy, where anything that falls under that heading, you can use a smaller heading. So if I save, you can see that our personal blog has now a H1, a H2, and 3 H3s that are fall under this. So now we have added some headings into our blog, and we want to add normal tags. So these headings are just used for title purposes. They're all bolded, they're all very big. But what if we just want regular text, the actual content of a blog? So that is where paragraph tags come in. And paragraph tags are very straightforward. It's just an angle bracket with a P inside. And let's just get into it. So for the first stage of celebration, I'm going to add these paragraph tags under the first stage. So if I save, you'll notice that we have these paragraph tags under it. These are all normal tags. And let me try to zoom in a bit.
What is it called? P tag, not a paragraph.
Because P is very easy to write.
Yeah. So most of the time, right? If you realize, like, we have like #1, #5, #3, P, and we have a lot of all these like tags, right? So the reason why we don't want to like write the full one and like paragraph literally or heading 1 literally, it's because most of the time programmers are very lazy. So
that's very true.
Yeah. So most of the time we just like shortcut. If we can shortcut it, just shortcut it. If we can copy it, we just copy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't worry. Like if you couldn't like remember or all these shortcuts, you can always like
Google them up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go for like elementary schools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So all these tags are basically like short forms of their actual names. And that's something you can keep in mind when you go forward in this course. You will see that a lot of tags, they are just short forms. And that's also one way you can help you to remember better. So let's add the second one and the last paragraph tag, which is this area over here. Oops. So now we have added some paragraph content under each heading. So basically describing like my expressions, my feelings during the MCO. And it's a roller coaster. So, lots of stuff happen. So one thing that I don't really like is that this paragraph, it goes all the way to the right, which makes me have to like move my head left to right, strain my eyes. So what if I want to fix that? What I can do is I can insert something called line breaks. So line breaks, they are a bit different because if you notice previously, all the HTML tags, they need a closing tag. So you have a starting tag, you have a closing tag with a backslash. And same with other tags, H1, H2, H3, P. Oops. So line break, however, and a few other unique tags, they are self-closing tags, which means they don't need a closing tag like this. So let's just get into it. It's just used to create a new line. So essentially break to the next line. So what we want to do is we want to make our paragraph content break to the next line after each sentence. So we can just add a line break tag. So let's say I will add a line break tag here. And this is a line break tag, which is self-closing. I don't need a slash here, and it just works by itself with one tag. So I'm going to do the same for the other tags as well, the other sentences. Basically, just create a line break after the first sentence. And after I save, you'll notice that when I refresh the page, they all have break into a new line, and it looks much more nicer, much more neat. I don't have to strain my eyes to read them. And it's just more organized. And the last section of the text content that we're going to get into is text formatting. So for text formatting, there are three basic ones. Strong, which is bold, emphasis, which is italic, and underline, which is just underline. So the tags are a bit weird, because like why is bold called strong? Why is italic called emphasis? That's because like this is a more newer version of the tags. Previously they were actually B and like I, but it's no longer used. So this is like the newer version, the more fancier version, I suppose. And they are very straightforward. So if you look over here, there are three formatting tags that we have to use. The first one is we have to bold move to online. So what you can do is you can just wrap that text in the bold text. Oops, I made a mistake here. So it's supposed to be strong. And your IDE will automatically close your strong tag, which is a bit annoying in this case. So you can just Control Z to undo that. And then you can close the strong tag. So the next one will be the campus life, means the campus life. I'm going to italicize it, which is emphasize. So again, it auto-completes. I don't want that. I press Ctrl Z to undo, or if you're using a Mac, Command Z. Then I close the tag. And the last one will be underline return to campus. So this one is the easiest, just a U. Ctrl Z to take out the tag or undo and close it. So after I save, if you go to the personal blog, refresh, you'll notice that these formatting tags have been applied. So formatting is essentially useful to kind of like emphasize the keywords on your website. You want people to focus on them, then you can use formatting. And that is basically it for the text part. Oh, this is something that is also something that you guys should know, which is you can wrap words in this text inside another tag. So formatting can be done within paragraph text. And this basically applies to a lot of tags in HTML. You can nest them inside each other. You can put one tag inside another. There is no issue. But you have to make sure that the sequence, the logic is correct. Otherwise, the document will look pretty messed up. So before we move to images, is there anyone with any like issues?
I think it's all good, right? It's not in the book as well. So yeah, I think no.
So I assume everyone is fine.
Where to see the browser?
Where to see the browser? Can you maybe explain a bit on what do you mean?
Oh, basically you have to double click the file.
Oh yeah, so you can go to your file itself, right? Which is the folder here that we created at the beginning, and you just double click your HTML file, and your browser will automatically open the HTML file. So if your default browser is Chrome, then you open with Chrome. If you're using something like Firefox, then you open with Firefox.
Or Internet Explorer.
Yeah, or Internet Explorer, Microsoft
that,
Edge.
Please don't use Internet
They
Explorer.
recently like rebranded with like a nicer logo and stuff like that. But everyone knows it's still pretty slow. So.
No, it's trash. I better edit this.
All right, so I think we can move on to the next part, which is adding images. So if you look at our blog now, right, it's just a bunch of text. Like it looks damn boring. I read this, I want to sleep really. So what's the best way to spice up your blog? By adding a couple of memes, of course. So I have created a couple of memes, actually stole a couple of memes, from like a couple of Facebook groups, Google Images, and I have uploaded them into this Git book under Add Images section. So you can download the images, just save image as, and you can choose the location of the images folder in the folder that we have created just now, which is personal blog. Same for the second one. And the last one, which is stage3.jpg. Oops. So after you have downloaded them, whether it's to your desktop or your downloads folder, make sure that they are inside your images folder. So you can drag these images in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 into your images folder in your website called personal blog. And once they are in, we are ready to use them. So let's start. Okay, so images, their tag is img, which is another short form for lazy programmers. And it's used to insert an image. It's very straightforward. It's also a self-closing tag, just like line break. You don't need a closing tag after this. It's just one tag by itself. And it requires attributes. So attributes is something new that you will learn today. And basically, they are used to provide additional information. And they are also placed in the opening tag. So when I just use img like this, right, the browser won't know what is the image. What happens if like the image does not load, and what is the size of the image. So it has no idea how to actually render the image on your website. That is why you need to add additional information to supplement the browser with the details that it needs. So basically, attributes, you place them in the opening tag. So if your tag is a self-closing tag, then it's that same tag. It's just one tag for you to put it in. And you have the attribute over here, and you assign it a value in double quotes. So let's get into attributes. For image, there are actually four main attributes that you can use for images. The first one is src. Sounds like Najib's case. And it's basically used to define the source of the image. So it tells your browser where is this image located. Is it in your database, your computer? Is it like a link online from a website? And the second one will be alternate, which is used to display text if image cannot load. So what happens if like a hacker deletes all your images from your website? At least your browser can still show some text to them. And the last one will be width and height. And they are used to adjust the size of the image in pixels. So there are a couple more measurements that you will learn in like CSS, which is the next workshop. But in HTML, width and height, the default measurement is pixels. So this is an example of how images are used. The first one is basically saying that I want to find this cat JPEG picture inside my images folder. And if, let's say, the cat image is not there, it will show cats. The second one is different because it uses an online link. So images, freeimages.com, large previews, beach dog. And basically, it will retrieve the image from that website and put it inside your website. And the last one, in here you can see that there is width and height to resize the image because maybe the image is too big or too small. So that is it for images. Let's start adding images into our website. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create our image tags, and we need to define the source of the image. So we are going to insert a meme after each stage. So for the first stage, celebration, after the text content, we will create an image tag. we will use src to define it, the source, which is images slash stage1.jpg. So again, your text editor helps you to autocomplete, very convenient. And then the second stage will be, oops, as you can see here, the text editor actually highlights it as red color because I forgot to close the tag. And it's a self-closing tag, so you don't need a /img. This is sufficient. Find the source images, but this time we are using stage 2 because this picture is under the stage 2 section. And the last one, after the text content, another image tag, src, images, stage 3. Save. And let's add the alternative text as well. So the first image will be basically a man dancing and celebrating. And for the second one, it's just a Squidward meme. So Squidward stuck at home. And the last one, alternate, and meet friends at campus. Woohoo! And after saving it, refresh your page. You'll notice that the images are added, but it is extremely large. So you can see that it takes up the entire website, and people will have to zoom out their phones or computers to be able to see that image. So let's actually resize it to make it look more nicer and smaller. So I'm just going to demonstrate for you what happens if, let's say, the image is gone. So let's say I go to my images, right? I move it outside of the folder. So for example, like a hacker go and hack my website, delete all my images, or the images just disappears for some reason. So if I refresh, you'll notice that there's this missing image icon, which shows that the image is gone, but there is an alternative text, man dancing and celebrating, which tells me what is the intended image originally there. So at least I don't feel that bad, you know. If I see like the image is gone, at least I know that this is what is supposed to be. So it is quite important for users to see alternative text if your images are not there. So let me just move it back. So to resize our image, we can use width or height, but using one is enough because your browser actually scales down your images according to the width or height. So it maintains the aspect ratio so that it does not get like too thin or too fat or too distorted. And what you can do is we can just use the width attribute or height attribute. Let's say for the first image, I want my width to be 400 pixels wide. The second one, also same, 400. And the last one will be 300. So after saving it and refreshing my website, you see that the images have actually shrunk down to the size that I want, which is much more smaller, much more nicer, and easier to read. So it doesn't like take out your whole page and like make everything too small. So that is it for the images section. So before we move on to links, is there any questions that you guys have? Any concerns?
Five, counting from 5, 4, 3,
2, 1. Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or even in the WhatsApp group that we'll send to you guys. Do join that and you can post your questions or problems there.
Yeah.
And don't worry if you can't catch up because there will be a recording for this. And also the resources will be sent along to you as well. Yeah, I think there is no problem from the floor.
All right. Let's move on. So now that our blog has a couple of images, it looks a bit more spicier now, looks a bit more juicier, but it's only one page. And what happens if you have a lot of pages in your blog? So how do we link these pages together? So let's explore links. So links are basically text that uses A actually standing for anchor tag. Not sure why is it called anchor tag, but yeah, it's like one of the weird tags where it uses a very different letter to what it actually means. So it's used to create a hyperlink. You can direct to a section on your page or another page or a website. So you can like link your website to like Facebook, Google, and stuff like that. And again, it also requires attribute because if I just create an A tag like that, my browser have no idea what is the actual link, whether to open in a new tab or the same tab and stuff like that. So there are two very basic link attributes, which are href, hyperlink or hypertext reference, and they are used to specify the URL or the link of the destination website or page. And the second attribute, target, will be how the link opens. So there are a few options where you can make the link like open at the top of your page, open in a new tab, open on the same page. But we are just going to use the open in a new tab page feature. And this is an example of how links are used. So you can redirect your users or visitors into your second page. You can redirect to a website or link. And if you use the target equals to blank attribute, you will open it in a new tab. And you can also make other elements a link. For example, if you have a YouTube logo, I can put that logo inside the anchor text or the link text, and that image itself will become a link that is clickable and it will bring them to YouTube. So that is something that a lot of websites do all the time, like at the top left corner here with their icon, you can click on the icon, it brings you to their homepage. So let's start by adding a second page for our blog. And you can just copy paste the document. That's what programmers do all the time. So let me just duplicate. And let me rename the document to page2.html, which represents my second page. After that, I'm going to erase all the content over here from the body onwards because I don't want to use the same content as our first page, which will make it like pretty repetitive and boring. And you can go to the Git book and copy this chunk of code over here. So just click the copy icon. It also includes the body, so you can delete that as well. And paste. And now you have second page where you can open. So again, you can go to your folder and you double click your HTML file. Your web browser will open it for you. So this is another page that also describes like what did I learn from MCO and my experiences. So now what you can do is you want to link both pages together, because if I am in this page, there is no way for me to actually navigate to the other page. There's nothing for me to click on. So I want to create a link that will link them together. And I can do that by basically using the anchor tag or link tag, which is A. I'm going to add it at the end of the image for the third stage, the very bottom. So anchor tag. And in between the anchor tags will be what I want the link to say. So it can be something like, open new page, or like go to page 2. But we're just going to keep it simple and just call it page 2. And after refreshing the page, you'll notice that a link has been created, but it's all the way like on top here, sticking together with the image. So I don't want that to happen. And the most easiest way will be to create a line break. So now it looks nicer. It's now at the bottom. And maybe if I want to create an extra gap, I can create another line break. And there is now some spacing in between the image and the link. But our link, of course, doesn't do anything yet because we need to add attributes to give it the information that it needs. So href will be used to define our link itself. And I'm going to go to page2.html. And that is basically it for page. The link you need to go to page 2. Very simple, very easy to use. And if I go back to my page 1, so you can see that I can click this page 2 link and it brings me to page 2. But now there's another problem. I can't go back. So what I can do is I can add another link to page 2 to bring me back to page 1. So if I go to page2.html, I create another anchor tag and another line break as well, because we don't want them to stick together with other stuff. Oops. So this time we go to page 1 and our link will be index.html, which is the home page. After saving it, refreshing it, you can actually now navigate back and forth between page 1 and page 2. So that's how you link different pages together. So just like this slides.com, you can see like they have a lot of different pages, and all these are actually link tags. So that is basically it for the links section. Before moving to containers, is there any questions that you guys would like to ask? Or any issues, problems?
So probably you can give like a recap of what we have learned just now.
Recap. Yeah, sure. So basically we learned to do a couple of very basic things. We learned to like set up our file structure. We learned to write very basic text content with headings and paragraph tags. And we learned to add images, which are a bit more complicated because you have a lot of attributes into our website to spice our website. And we also added a second page so that users can go to page 2 to read more about your blog.
Yeah.
So that is basically what we have just done.
Yeah, I think there is no question from the floor.
Okay, let's move on to containers. So containers is something that can be quite complicated at first, but just bear with me. So containers are basically used to contain or to package multiple elements together into one. And it's useful for styling. Styling means like decorating, changing the color and stuff like that of many elements at once. So this is something that you're going to learn in CSS in the next workshop. And this is a very simple example. So let's say I have 3 elements. Let's say maybe A is a H1 tag, B is like a paragraph tag, and C is like a link tag. And I want to make all 3 of them become blue color. So one way to do it is to individually style them one by one. So, change A to blue, change B to blue, change C to blue. And it's extremely inefficient. Imagine like, let's say you want to change your whole page into like one color, and you have to wrap like you have to individually style maybe like few hundred of elements, and that's going to take a long time. So what we can do is we can use containers to essentially wrap them into one element, and we can just style that element by itself, and it will transform everything inside of that element into the style you want. So when I wrap A, B, and C into one element called D, I just have to change D to blue, and everything inside will change. So containers are very useful for styling, and there are two major containers. The first one is division with a div tag. Again, this is a short form, and it is a block type of container. So I'm going to get into block and inline later. So what happens is when you have a block container, it will create a new line and it will take up the full width of the page. And it's used to wrap large sections of content. So when you like divide your website into many different sections, you want to use division to wrap them to make them become one section. So that is what division is something that you will use a lot in the future. And the second one, which is less commonly used, is span tag. And basically, they are an inline container. Inline means like they are on the same line, and they only take up the necessary width. So this one I will demo to you. After that, it's also used to wrap small amounts of content together. So that is basically what a span tag is. Okay, so you might ask, what is block, what is inline? So let's just say we create another page just for demo purposes. And then I'm going to define the HTML boilerplate. Okay, so let's say now I have a bunch of images. So let's say I create an image with page 1, right? And then let's say I copy it. And the other two images I'm going to use stage 2 and stage 3. So with 400, with 400, and with 300. Okay, let me just search W3 schools real quick. So if you search like inline and block, you can find a list of different elements. There are inline and block elements. So these are a couple of block elements. Image is actually inline element. So if you notice, after I resize the images stick together. They start on the same line. They take up the necessary width for the page. So image 1, image 2, image 3, same line, only use the width that they need. And it flows all the way to the right. So what if we use another block type of element? For example, paragraph tag. So it's something basic that we just learned. So if let's say we create a paragraph of maybe Apple, and then another paragraph tag of maybe Samsung, and the last one will be Huawei. So after refreshing the page, you'll notice that paragraph tags are block element. So they start on a new line, as you can see, and they take up the whole width, the whole right side of the page. And when you define another block element, again, it will create a new line, take out the whole width. It doesn't stick together like images. So that is the difference between block and inline. Inline means on the same line, only the necessary width, and block elements take up the whole width of the page. They are very greedy, and they always create a new line. So it starts on a new line. So containers, they don't do anything at all. They are just used to wrap elements into one element. And it's something that, at first, you might be like, why is it even used for? And I don't even understand, like, what the hell are you saying? So don't worry. In the next workshop, CSS, you will learn a lot more about using containers to style your elements. And you already get to know what are divs, what are spans, and what are the differences and stuff like that. So this is just something that let you know earlier so that you are more prepared to know how to use these tags in the future when you're in the CSS workshop. So this is essentially an example of how to use these containers. And you can see that I use a div tag for one whole section of my website. This is the second section. And then for a shorter text like this one, I just use span. So let's say I want to change these 4 words into blue color. I can just use span to wrap them into one element, and then I style that element to change it to blue color. And if I want to change this whole section 1, which I wrap in div text to maybe red color, I can just change the div to red color instead of the H1 and the P individually. So let's add some containers into our page. And we are going to do that for these 3 sections over here. So the first stage, let's create some gap first to make it easier. The second stage, and the third stage. So what you can do is we can create div, and then undo this, and then we close the div. Again, for the second stage, div, and then we close the div, and the last stage, the third stage, div, and we want to close the div at here because after this image, right, this one is the link already, it's not part of our section anymore. So one thing you have to keep in mind is don't forget to indent your elements. So if you see now, it's pretty messy. But if I press tab on my text editor, I can indent them to the right side. So same for the H3 elements and the image elements, tab. And the last one, the third stage, tab. So now it looks much nicer. Another common thing that you might face is, what if I accidentally tap too much? I can actually use Shift Tab to tap it to the left side instead. So that's how you can kind of play with it. So now let's move on to the next section. Okay, so if you read in the gitbook here, right, we have actually completed almost everything in our workshop. There are 3 other sections that unfortunately we don't really have that much time to complete. But feel free to go back home and explore them. We have actually created slides for them. So you can see that there are lists. You can create order and unordered lists. Ordered lists are like with numbers, and unordered lists are basically just bullet points. You can create tables. So like table, table row, table heading, table data. And you can basically create tables inside your website to fill like data information. And the most complicated one will be forms. So you can create like contact us forms there's a lot of different elements and attributes used inside forms like input, text area, and essentially it will look something like this. So this is like those contact us forms that you find in a lot of websites. So all this stuff can be quite complicated and quite in-depth. That's why we do not want to actually go through them on this workshop, because this workshop is supposed to be like a very beginner-friendly workshop. But after the workshop, once you have understand most of the stuff that we have taught in the workshop, then you are definitely ready to learn all this extra stuff and take your website to the next level. So there are also step-by-step tutorials for how to use lists. For example, we add a social media links on the end of our website. And then we also included a table with the different MCO types and the different durations. So hopefully they don't extend again very sadly. So the last one will be the contact form, where we collect our visitors' information so they can put their name, their email, their message, and submit. But one thing to note is this form, right, is just the front end. So when people submit their information, nothing happens unless you have a back end to process the information, to store it in the database. So that is something that we won't get to in this workshop or in this web launch, but maybe in the future we will include more back-end content if you guys are interested, of course. So let's move on to the final part, which is practical 2. And we are going to create a very basic landing page. So it looks like this. And this landing page is going to be continuously improved or used by the next workshop. So we are just going to create the HTML part of it. In the next workshop, you'll learn how to enhance it to look like this. And then the last workshop, which is JavaScript, you will actually learn to create like a functional to-do list app for this landing page. So let's start. So first of all, we're going to create a new folder. So maybe in our desktop again. And let's just call it to-dos or to-do-z, however do you want to pronounce it. And we're going to create another folder again, images, to store our images inside the folder. And another thing that we want to create is a common. So common is another folder that is used to usually store other common websites that are not your index. So let's say you have like contact us, you have like about us, you have all those different pages. You can put them inside the common folder, which means that in this area, you only have one index.html here. But again, file structure, they are quite subjective. Some developers, they will put them in different folders and different ways. But feel free to kind of like create your own style of storing files, as long as it's organized, of course. And let's start. So if you go back to our text editor, we can actually close up all this stuff. And I can delete the demo over here, because this is just for demo purposes. And we want to go to File, Open Folder, and we open the same website folder that we created just now, which is to-dos. And now you can see that we have it open right here in the editor section with our common and images folder. So let's create a new index.html file. And again, let's start with our boilerplate. Type HTML to declare the document as a HTML file. And then HTML tags. The head tags. And the body tags. So after that, we also want to add a title tag to our document. So let's call our website title to-dos. Oops, title, to-dos. So save, go to your folder, open up your index.html, and you can see that it is now named to-dos, as you can see over here. So now let's add an icon for our website, which is this tick over here, or this check mark. And again, I've uploaded this very large to-dos icon or logo, which you can download. So just right click, save image as, choose the folder that we have created, and store it inside the images folder. And now let's try to recall everything that we have done in the images section. So first thing we want to do is we want to create an image tag which is self-closing, and to define the source of the image, what that image is, where is it located, you have to use the src attribute with the location of the directory. So in this case, images. And if you notice that like every / is going inside a folder, but what if I want to go backwards? So what you can do is you can actually use 2 dots and then \. So this means go back up 1 folder, then go inside images folder. So this is something that you might encounter if you want to go back or go higher up into the folders instead of going into the folders. So our logo will be to-dos logo.png. And the alternative text, let's just call it to-dos logo. And after you save, you refresh the page. It's too big, it's blocking our whole screen. So let's resize it to a width of 32. Oh, you don't have to include these pixels. This is a small mistake that I've forgot to remove. So width equals to 32. And just this number is sufficient because width will always be in pixels. You don't have to mention it again. And now it fits our page. So let's check. Save, refresh. You can see here it looks very small and nice. And now let's add a couple of navigation links. So first, let's create a new section to define our navigation links or navigation bar using a div tag. And let's add the links inside. So to save time, I'll just copy the links over here. And we also want to include our image inside the section. So what we can do is do something like this. Div with the image inside. This one is actually 32. 48 also can. And I have added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 link tags with a couple of href attributes. So index.html is the home page. The other pages, they don't exist yet, but I can still define them, although it won't open those pages up because we haven't created them yet. And these are what the links will say: home, benefits, pricing, about us, demo. And if you look at our page, we have now added a couple of navigation links onto our website. And if we click on any of those pages, right, it won't actually open because we haven't created them yet. So another thing that we can do is we want the home page icon to also be a link. So if I click here, nothing happens, but that sucks because all the websites also do that. They have a home page icon. You can click on it, it brings you to the home page. So what we can do is we can actually wrap the image inside a tags with the link, redirecting them to index.html, which is our homepage. And then what we can do is in between these A tags, right, these link tags, we type to-dos. So we wrap the image inside a link tag that directs us to the home page. And inside the link tag, we add to-dos so that the link says to-dos. And when we refresh the page, it looks something like this. So now if you notice, when I hover over the icon or logo, it becomes this different hand gesture cursor, which means that it's clickable, and it will bring us to the home page. So we manage to duplicate this effect that a lot of websites use. When you click on their homepage, when I click on the icon, you bring them back to the homepage, as you can see. And now the last part will be to add a few content to our landing page. Well, our landing page is actually very minimalistic with just like 3 text content. So what you can do is, let's create a new section. And the first one will be this to-do app. So because it's like the biggest, the most important text of our landing page, we will use H1 to do app. And let's refresh. So I think we can take out the spacing. It looks like this, which is the heading of our page to do app. Then the next one, we can actually use a paragraph tag because this is more of the text content. But you can also use other tags. You can also use H2 because it's second most important, but it's under the to-do app, which is H1. So it's according to the hierarchy of importance, H2 element. But in this case, we'll use a paragraph tag. And it is to the extreme. So let's refresh. And you can see there's a paragraph text content over here. And the last thing is we want to add a link for them to learn more, which is essentially this part over here. So let's create an anchor tag or a link tag inside the div section. And redirect it to common / learn more. This page doesn't exist yet, but we are just defining the location of it. And it says learn more. So after you refresh, there is a learn more link created, just like this. And that is basically the end of our practical session. So the thing is, if you look at this, right, and you look at this, it looks nothing like it, except for the text. It's like day and night. So, why does it look like this? We have completed everything that we need to, right? Well, that is because all these decorations, all these different colors, the alignment of this text, this navigation bar aligning to the right, everything here is all made with HTML and CSS. So to actually make your website over here looks like this very nice landing page, you have to learn CSS and align them to these respective locations. And you can also change the background colors and the text color. So, but because this workshop is just HTML, right? So we can only do up to here, which looks somewhat like it with the content, but do join our next CSS workshop and we will teach you how to use CSS to turn this pretty boring looking ugly page into this very nice landing page. And that is basically it for our workshop content. So these are stuff that you guys can explore after the workshop, just to give you guys something to do, since it's like sem break for some of you guys. And a couple of tips. So a lot of beginners, they make mistakes where they forget to close their tags when needed. So make sure to always close your tags, unless your tag is a special self-closing tag, like line break, then you don't have to close. But for other tags like div, pretty much more tags will actually need closing tags to complete the code. So don't forget to close tags when needed. And the second tip is don't need to memorize all the tags. Like we have went through quite a lot of different HTML tags, like images, paragraph tags, H1, A tags, and then there's like more tags. But all these tags, right, no need to memorize one, because they are all available online on Google. So you can just search, like, heading tag, HTML, and there you go, H1 to H6. So you don't have to memorize all these tags at all. And after a while, right, you can actually start to remember them just by practicing. So keep practicing. The more you code, the more you remember these tags naturally. Don't have to purposely like memorize them, unless you're like coding on paper lah. Without internet, then maybe you need to memorize lah. But it's the modern times, everyone has internet, and you can just Google them. And don't forget to explore yourself. Not explore yourself. Explore, both explore yourself and explore the HTML tags, right? Because you want to learn more about web development. You want to learn more about the other HTML tags. So the content that we show you today, right, is just a small part of HTML, like very, very small part. There's so much more that you guys can do with HTML. You can add videos. You can like create a couple of very cool stuff, like all these things over here. So, just explore them and keep the curiosity going. So these are a couple of resources that you can access. The first one is W3 Schools, which is like the #1, world's largest web developer site with a bunch of documentation inside. So you can just like click Learn HTML. Everything is inside. How to use tags, every single tag, how do they work, examples. And it's extremely useful for web developers to kind of refer to like all these different tags. So don't need to memorize them, just go to W3 Schools, settle. The next one is FreeCodeCamp. FreeCodeCamp is not a documentation or reference website, but it's more of a practical learning website. So for example, I can start jumping into HTML. There are a lot of other things here, by the way, like CSS and JavaScript. So let's say I click this one, and you can see here that there is like a tutorial for me to follow, a practical area where I can type code inside, and this is the output. So this is more for like if you are an interactive learner, you can't just read stuff, you must actually do the stuff. Then this is a very good website for you to practice all your HTML with all these different exercises. So there is like so many exercises that you can do. And the last one is, of course, YouTube. YouTube has a lot of very useful content. So like FreeCodeCamp, which is the same website, the same YouTube channel as this website, they create a lot of very useful videos. HTML, Travesty Media is another very popular one. So there's this guy who's like, learn HTML in 12 minutes, which speed runs everything. YouTube is also a very good place for you to learn all this HTML stuff. So that will be the end of our workshop. Before that, we do hope that you can help us to fill out this feedback form. So we at Sunway Tech Club can continue to improve from the feedback that you guys provide to us. So we really value your feedback, and please help us to fill it up. So you can scan this QR code here. Have you sent the link?
I'm getting the link.
Okay.
Right.
So my friend over here, Pupu, the MC, will send the link to the chat.
Right. Okay, sure. Right.
So do take out a bit of time to fill up the feedback form. Let us know what do you think, what else can be improved. And yeah,
Is there any questions that you guys have?
yep, the floor is open for any questions. So don't be afraid to ask, whether it's in WhatsApp or the Google Meets. We are all beginners once as well. So we know how you feel. It can be pretty confusing at times.
I think if there is no questions, then we can probably end today's sessions. Yeah. So thank you,
Alright,
everyone.
So I'm going to pass back to Pupu.
Right. Sure. So do follow us on our social medias: Facebook, Instagram, GitHub, LinkedIn, Telegrams. We also have a Telegram group for you guys to join. And also, if you guys got any inquiries, you can always email us at hi@sunwaytechclub.com, or you can directly approach to us through the Facebook, or you can even go to our YouTube channel. Just simply type Sunway Tech Club, and you will see us as the first results. So thank you everyone for attending the sessions today. So hopefully we can see you again in the next CSS sessions to know more about how we can turn the design that we have, technically a design that we have just now, into a more prettier format. All right. So I think probably that sums up today's sessions. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.